And now we move to the next presentation, after which I promise to give us a 5-minute break. The next word is to André Joly. André Joly is retired pastor, Evangelical Reformed Church, Vaud, and the former chairman of the ACO Fellowship. After studying theology at the University of Lausanne, he served as a fraternal worker in French Polynesia for 4 years. After his return in 1987, he served several parishes in the Swiss Canton Vaud, the last of which was the Lausanne Cathedral 2011 to 19. He has been involved in the ACO for about 3 decades, and Reverend Joly will present in the French language. The English translation has been sent to you. Thank you very much, André Joly.
Thank you, Reverend Paul. I think it was
okay.
the contrary. I will.
Oh, well, nice. Thank you.
The contribution has been sent to you by Reverend Wilbert in French. I will concentrate on a presentation about an analysis of what ACO Fellowship is now, today. And this will start from 1995 till now. And first of all, I will just pay a tribute to 2 pastors, 2 reverends, Reverend Haigazian and Reverend Mate, Haigazian from the Union and Reverend Mate from the Reformed churches in Switzerland, because they were just the actors, the main actors for transforming ACO in a fellowship, into a fellowship. That vision of those two people were convinced that we not only have a common testimony, but we have to create a community. And that community was, of course, deeply rooted in different histories and different church traditions. I will now propose you a method of reading, analyzing, from the SWOT tool. The SWOT tool has been used for analysis of projects, and this tool allows a global reading and a dynamic perspective for project. The ACO Fellowship, like all human projects, must take internal and external factors into account. And this means that it must be shown how this twofold movement constitutes the life of the fellowship. The internal factors reveal the community's strength and weaknesses, while the external factors reveal its opportunities and threats. So let's start with the internal analysis, and I will have 9 points of strength. Those points, those strengths are what sustain, what promote and carry the project. The first strength is that the ACO Fellowship follows a tradition that began in the time of the New Testament. Common testimony based on common solidarity. Solidarity being a sign of a common testimony. Testimony and solidarity carried by prayer, confidence, faith in Christ, who walks among pilgrims. This project included in the life of churches and of partners who have a common history and who feel the need to come together. The second strength, since its inception of the ACO Fellowship, has had a light structure without legal existence, rather carried by desire, the will, and the recognition of 6 partners. It is a tool that serves them. In this sense, it avoids the political function that many other institutions of the church still maintain. Strength number 3. The ACO does not have any proper structure. It does not finance any secretariat or executive secretariat. Strength number 4. The ACO Fellowship is an incubator of ideas and theologies. Each partner and each participant arrives to the community with their own sensitivities, anthropology, and theology. It is one of the rare communities in which conservatism and liberalism accept to confront the trials of the church and its missionaries. There is a sense of prophecy in this community life. Strength number 5, because of its inherent fragility, the ACO Fellowship is less vulnerable to maneuvers of appropriation and instrumentalization that we can observe in other organizations. Strength number 6. The ACO Fellowship has a constitution, has bylaws, and some constitutive text that express its mission and discussions. It has a yearly executive community and a biennial general assembly. Strength number 7. The ACO Fellowship receives resources allocated by the partners, and its executive freely decided how to attribute them, even if it's not the respective partners. I mean, one of the 6 partners. There is an inside solidarity and an outside solidarity as well. Strength number 8. The ACO Fellowship is free of any interference from the churches or its missionaries. It receives its legitimacy by its General Assembly. And strength number 9, the ACO Fellowship sustains not only the project of the ACO partners, as I said before, but also projects outside the community. So on different levels, there is a lot of strength, and I certainly didn't say any other thing about others should be more finding. Let's focus now on the weaknesses, because the weaknesses are mainly and mostly inherent to the venture and some few as flaws. The first weakness is that ACO Fellowship does not have its own resources. Its survival depends on external resources, and it does have the means to operate independently. The ACO Fellowship is a fully assisted structure and community. Weakness number 2, the ACO Fellowship is chiefly carried by church officials and mission agencies. Let's close the analysis from the internal and move on to the external analysis. We have two poles, opportunity and threats. I will give you 9 points of opportunities, which I may draw your attention that from internal or from external analysis, the positive points are more obvious than the negative points. The positive factors of external origin fuel the community and give it a mission. They give it life and raison d'être as a sharing community. Let's go to the first opportunity. The ACO Fellowship is carried by the will and the choice of 6 partners, 6 particular histories, 6 different church traditions, 6 ways of carrying and explaining the kerygma and the diaconia. Opportunity number 2, the ACO Fellowship assembled its partners before working towards its mission. History is born in 1922, and we have heard from Reverend Paul before, and still going on, have fashioned a life of togetherness. The difference have nourished this common life without diminishing the bilateral relations that each partner has built since its creation. Opportunity number 3, the ACO receives its financial means directly from its partners. Therefore, it does not need to occupy itself with looking for more funds. Opportunity number 4, the ACO Fellowship is chiefly carried by church officials and mission agency. The lines of communication are short and efficient. Important knowledge is communicated easily. Opportunity number 5. The communication of ACO Fellowship is entrusted to the churches and their agencies. The churches transmit the work of the partners to the members of the ACO Fellowship, and they also sensitize their constituencies and motivate their support. We have been, through the contribution of Jean-Claude, carried on the legitimacy of a prayer letter. Opportunity number 6, the ACO Fellowship is sustained by one of the partners who makes a part-time staff member available. And I'm talking about ACO France. This allows the community to have someone who follows their projects and programs, and of course, fosters community life. Opportunity number 7, by its engagements and sustaining of projects and programs from the partners, ACO Fellowship has an excellent reputation among the partners. This is due to 2 main reasons. The first reason is the executive coordination of the projects decided by the fellowship and not imposed by missionary agencies. The second reason is that ACO has a light structure which can function at a very low cost. Opportunity number 8, since its creation, the ACO Fellowship has prioritized mutual visits. This is seen first of all in the alternation of the places of annual meetings and of its executive committee, and secondly, in the visit of the projects of the fellowship. The beneficiaries of the projects are visited, which help to sensitize the fellowship to the local life of the partners. Additionally, the ACO Fellowship has developed 2 types of exchange. The first one is the fellowship exchange, which allows 2 persons from the Middle East and 2 persons from Europe to be introduced to the life of their church and the projects being developed on each end. This type of exchange was created based on the conviction that communion is impossible without exchange, discovery, questioning, surprise, and wonder for those who are meant to believe with one another. The objective of this micro-project is twofold: to discover a different church and to bear witness upon returning home, to recount, just like the first believers who were amazed and perplexed. And I invite you to read the 2nd chapter of the book of Acts. The second type of exchange is the exchange of youth, groups of youth who concentrate on the more specific activities of the youth of the church. The objectives of the youth exchange are roughly the same as the community exchange, including reporting back to their own churches. Opportunity number 9, the ACO Fellowship can be a theological incubator and the force of living together if the partners wish so. Such diverse spiritual horizons, histories of the different communities, and the acts of healing should be able to reflect back the represented treasures. If this is to materialize, the fellowship should devote as much time to sharing as to addressing the urgent needs. Let's move to the threats. And from an external analysis, there would be more threats than from an internal. Certain external factors are directly threaten the life and projects of the ACO Fellowship. Let's think about the first threat. The decrease of financial resources brought by the European partners is probably the main threat. We have to face it. The ACO Fellowship can only survive as a missionary movement or solidarity movement, can only survive thanks to the financial resources of its 6 partners, which make up the common basket. These resources are decreasing. The European churches are in a deep crisis, like our societies. We are no longer born Christian, but we become Christian by choice. Therefore, expressions of support and solidarity are no longer inherited from the tradition, but chosen as well. This change constitutes an ecclesial challenge, not only for the European community, but also for the agencies which have to mobilize solidarity. The believers no longer contribute with blind faith or blind money, but rather with an informed faith and then informed money. This shift in patterns of giving is noteworthy. We do not give less, but we rather differently. We will no longer support an institutional program. We will support people, specific needs, faces, and stories. Threat number 2. The missionary agencies face 2 interrelated challenges which also affect the life of the fellowship. The decrease of financial resources, as I said, and the reduction of staff. Until the 1980s, there were numerous missionaries or fraternal workers. They were able to interact with the local communities, which provided donations. They were known and they shared their news and explained their ministry. That is how they gathered support. This is not the case nowadays, since the period of service of fraternal workers is generally much shorter, and the flow of missionaries is drying up. The life of the church is affected and will continue to be affected by these changes. Threat number 3. The position of the General Secretary of ACO Fellowship is ensured and funded by one generous European partner, the French Church. Although this is a real opportunity, it raises questions for the ACO Fellowship as a community. Can its administration be dependent on only one partner? This is a fundamental missiological question, which is the heart of the community and concerns all partners. We can imagine different ways of coordination, administration, and reflection. Threat number 4. The ACO Fellowship is principally governed by professionals of the churches. This is a real opportunity, as previously mentioned, but may also be a threat. The life of the community should permeate the most diverse places within the churches, relayed by eyewitnesses who have been sensitized by engagement with one another. To deprive oneself of these opportunities will impoverish the life of the community, which risks being perceived as another institution without roots in the local churches. Threat number 5, the ACO Fellowship is tied to the motivation and capacity of its partners. They face colossal challenges, their capacity to react to urgent situations, the need to reform and adapt to the expectations and needs of the civil society, finding more up-to-date and modern ways of communication, developing a more proactive attitude, which is directly missing in many agencies today. These factors are threats for a community as fragile as ACO Fellowship. Finally, last threat, the ACO Fellowship, like all other human institutions, survives because it has the capability to reform itself. Institutional immobility is the greatest threat, especially in a small structure such as a community. Let's say a few words about the challenges. The ACO Fellowship exists because it assembles men and women who are convinced that the gospel has to be shared. This community, in terms of resources, presents only a few grains of salt in the immense dog that it is the church itself. Its future rests on the capacity of each partner to find ways to express solidarity, which should be based on the common will. The greatest challenges are not directly related to ACO Fellowship. These challenges are the circumstances, the contingencies, which will eventually determine the next steps. The events of the Arab uprising until just recently the explosion of the blowout of August 4 in Beirut have marked the Middle East partners. Terrorist attacks have hit the Western democracies. The political regimes have shown their limits. The COVID-19 pandemic has rocked the whole world. No one, including the institution we are discussing here, will emerge intact from these trials. The strengths and opportunities are real but fragile. The revelation welcomes even the smallest instruments. The ACO Fellowship is a small grain of salt which can give taste to the bread on the table. Let's conclude now. The Action Chrétienne on Orient was founded because of the terrible suffering of the Armenians, whose very life was threatened. It developed among the least, it has engaged them and ensured the sharing of its resources. Today, the challenges are manifold and lurk in all the corners of the communities: racial, religious, ethnic, economic, political, fragmentation, and as a result of that, the vulnerability of societies have turned any reorganization of the community into a delicate matter. However, the history of the church shows that nothing can separate living beings from the love of God. It is on his conviction that the future of ACO Fellowship can or should rest in terms of a horizon as a reminder of the shared essential realities. Thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you so much, André Joly. And now we go into a 7-minute break, but we don't want the 7 minutes to be without quality. So Reverend Wilbert will share with us a couple of questions. So it's a poll you have to electronically answer if you like. So in 7 minutes, we come back. Thank you.